Cost Allocation Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. The item before you this evening is discuss the city's cost allocation plan so that staff has some direction to move forward with the 2017-19 budget process. As everyone on council is aware, even the new members, with the passage of Measure C, the city's cost allocation plan has come into significant light, questioning the use of these funds with paying for this with Measure C funds. So this staff report is just to expand a little bit on what the cost allocation plan is, give an example of how it works, and then ask for direction from the council. So with that said, in 2005, the City Council at that time approved a cost allocation plan prepared by an independent consultant called Public Resource Management. This plan was implemented in the 2006-07 fiscal year. And what a cost allocation plan does is it allocates the cost of departments whose primary function is to support other city departments. Thus, the city has labeled these as internal services in the adopted budget documents. And it appears an expense line in this called citywide admin in the departmental budgets that are prepared. And this allocates this out to the general fund, special revenue funds, internal service funds, as well as enterprise funds. So the plan determined that the proportionate share each user department was responsible of the support department's budget based on a comprehensive study. That proportionate share has not changed since the plan was implemented, as no formal update has been contracted for by the city since 2005. The amount of the citywide admin, which is the main charge that's been under question and come to light in this past year, that is charged out fluctuates each year depending on what the adopted budget is each year of the support department. Thus, since the plan was first implemented, if a support department's budget increases, then the amount allocated out increases, and vice versa. If it went down, then the cost allocation from that department would go down. There's also a building use allowance and an equipment use allowance charge as part of this plan, included in the total internal services in the budget document, and this amount has not changed at all since implementation of the plan. So the plan itself allocates the cost of the city managers, finance, human resources, city attorney, facilities, and some other public works functions, city clerk, city council, office of emergency services, and non-departmental costs among all departments and funds of the city. And as mentioned, this includes non-general fund activities such as water and sewer funds. So the next paragraph gives a very basic example, which I can hope helps the council and public understand how the plan works. So a very simplified example, if in 2016 the budget of the support department, the one providing the services, equals $10,000 in total, and that is allocated to one of the users department, and they get 10% of that cost, it would be $1,000. Then in 2017, that support department's budget increases to $11,000. The users department share, that 10%, now becomes $1,100 versus $1,000. So the 10% has remained the same, but the amount being allocated out increases. The plan itself is quite complicated and intricate, and as you can see by attachment A, you can see how the costs are allocated just to the police department by each department that's allocating out and each one that goes. So each department has a big spreadsheet like that listing each percentage that's going to each division. And since the passage of Measure C, the cost allocation plan, as I said, has been the subject of much public discussion and scrutiny, particularly in regards to the amount being charged to the police department annually. It has been asserted that charging the police department for increases in allocated costs in accordance with the plan does not meet the intent of Measure C. As was previously stated to City Council at the meeting of May 10th, 2016, staff does not concur with this concern and believes the cost allocation plan charges to the police department and any other department or enterprise are valid operational costs of those departments that use the services provided. Since the plan was implemented in fiscal year 2006-2007, the police department has been charged for these support functions. We're really just trying to reiterate that this was in place prior to Measure C. It wasn't something tacked on to try and use Measure C funds. The formula used prior to the passage of Measure C is the same as the formula used subsequent to the passage of Measure C. The amount of charges either increasing or decreasing every year based on the budget of the departments being allocated, irrespective of if the budgets of the departments receiving the allocations are increasing or decreasing. Charges from the allocating departments to the police or any other department are essential functions that need to be provided to help the police department function. For example, finance provides payroll services to the police department, and therefore part of the allocation is for that. And unless the city council wants to establish a completely autonomous police department where they hire their own governing board, payroll function, accounts payable function, accounts receivable, etc., a cost allocation of these functions is the most economical way to share the cost of these functions across all city departments, and a cost allocation is a common tool used by many cities. The cost allocation is just one of many expenditure line items in the police department that make up the entire budget and used in the calculation of the total amount of expenditures factored in to Measure C. The City Council could, however, direct that the cost allocation plan charges not be included in the Measure C equation as it directed with the eBricks radio purchase. The charges would still be part of the police department budget, however, they would be paid from other general fund resources other than Measure C. With that being said, it is important to note that the cost allocation plan charges are not new or additional costs being paid by the city to a third party. The cost allocation plan simply takes an amount of expenditures of the support departments and shifts a share of those costs to user departments. So with that being said, we're just requesting council direction, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions of council?
Question. So I'm looking at a spreadsheet that from you, and it gives, I guess, a 6-year breakdown of the cost allocation percentage. And 2012, it was 5.6%. 2013, it was 6.3%. 2014, it was 6.3%. 2015, 6.3%. Then 2016 went up to 7.8%, and then 2017 we went to 8.1%. Who determines that percentage?
So when the department, say the city manager's budget, if their budget goes up 3%, 3% more gets allocated out to all the city departments that receive that, not just the police department.
So staff determines that percentage.
Well, when the budget is approved, and if the budget went up 3% from the prior approved budget, then that allocation increases 3%. So that's how we determine the amount to increase each year. And since the plan was first implemented, there was a couple years where the cost allocation charges actually decreased due to the furloughs and layoffs and other things. And now that the furloughs have been reinstated, in addition, we've started restaffing some departments. Our PERS costs have gone up, our health costs, etc. Any costs that takes to run a city, if the department budgets increase, for example, if it goes up 3%, then 3% more gets allocated out.
So again, just so that I'm clear, staff determines that percentage based on the percentage a department receives in their budget.
If I might, staff doesn't determine anything, just math determines it. Once the budget's approved, the cost allocation plan is implemented. So it's not like staff is deciding anything.
Based on a formula.
Based on the formula, and the attachment that Ms. Merchant put on a report that shows the police breakdown, it's not as simple as the example where X department gets Y%. It's all these different departments allocated across several, in terms of the police department, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 different police cost centers. And so as these different internal service things go up or down at different rates, it's going to just be implemented by this formula. That's why you get some fluctuation in the total from year to year.
So this fluctuation is based on this formula.
Based on the
It's not based on the formula of all these percentages. Like I said, if the city manager's budget, if the city manager's budget in fiscal year 16 was an amount, and then it increased 3% in fiscal year 17, then there's 3% more that has to get allocated out to the departments. And the amount is determined, these percentages that you see on attachment A, all those percentages stay the same that go out. It's just what's being allocated out of the city manager's department is now greater.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Wilson, you had a question?
Sorry, yes. So I just have a question. I have one question now and another one for later. So this allocation was, let's see, implemented or adopted back in 2005, and here we are in 2017.
Yes.
Have we over the, that's what, 12 years. So have we at any point stopped and say, let's step back and reassess, are we using the proper formula? Is this working? Is this working in benefit of all the departments in the city, or we've just kind of adopted it in 2005 and just kind of let it run? So I'm just curious if over the years have we, from time to time, taken a step back to reassess this allocation plan?
It has been discussed because most cost allocation plans that cities do get, within 5 to 7 years, they get an update of that plan, just to make sure that all the variables are still the same in terms of what factors are used to determine what percentages get allocated out to what departments. However, 5 years out after 2005, 2010 is when the city really started to experience recession, and it was like, we're not going to pay a consultant to use their expertise to update this plan. We're going to continue with the plan that was adopted in 2005 and continue to adjust it by the increase or decrease in the budgets. It is something staff has talked about many times. Yes, we'd like to get it updated. However, it's not a priority use of budgeted funds at these times.
Could we find out what the cost would be to have? Because basically, we're getting an outside objective.
Right.
To look in.
Yeah, the city could certainly do a request for proposal to put it out there to consultants to ask them how much they would charge to update the plan.
Okay, I have another question. I'll reserve it for later.
Councilmember Ogerchuk.
Ms. Merchant, with that, if that happens, the allocation cost could go up.
That is correct.
Okay. One other question. Measure O funds. We don't do this on Measure O funds, do we?
Well, Measure O funds are a revenue. They're not an expenditure source. So it's hitting the expenditure budgets of every department in the city, irrespective of what revenue is going in there. So it's just saying that it costs this much more to run your department for these additional services provided. And like I said, it's not that. So the general fund budget is approximately $50 million. Even if you said don't include that in the Measure C calculation of the base, the general fund expenditures are still going to remain $50 million because it's not money we're paying to a third party. We're just saying this share of the city manager's budget is actually a cost to you. So it reduces the city manager budget by that total and shifts it over to another department.
Thank you.
Councilmember Thorpe.
And so, like for example, for the police department and the allocation contribution from the police department to the cost allocation plan, what since 2012 to 2017 kind of changed in where that money goes?
Well,
I guess, yeah.
Well, the money goes to the city council for, it was determined by the comprehensive study that your time spent on bargaining negotiations, how many agenda items come before you, that, for example, 5.87% of the city council's budget is going to be charged to the PD administration. For city attorney, it's saying, 14.23% of the city attorney's budget time is spent in the PD administration. So 14.23% of that budget gets charged from the city attorney to the police department, for example. So it's for the services provided, either oversight.
Your department gets the largest share of the allocation, 34.54%.
From the police department, yes.
Where does that go?
It goes to pay for payroll services that my department applies. We pay invoices.
An influx in payroll services from 89 police officers to now we've just made it to what? We're at 98?
The police department has the largest share of employees out of any department in the city. So we spend more resources with police department payroll versus other departments. So, but it's not just payroll. We pay accounts payable invoices for anything that they purchase, any money that they need to bill to collect from people. We do the billing there. So it's a wide variety of services that finance does, for example. And just like human resources has a charge that's for the cost of hiring and any other services that human resources needs to provide.
For 10 additional people.
It's not just 10 additional people, it's in total for the entire police department.
Well, again, as Ms. Merchant explained, it doesn't matter if there's 10 additional people or 10 less people. The pie that's divided is the cost of the internal services, and the formula is the cost allocation plan. Whether Measure C was ever existed or not, the formula stays the same. And so it's nothing that anybody does other than apply the math that's in the plan. It doesn't matter how many people, how many hires we've had. But I think one of the things that some of the detractors have been emphasizing is how much it went up since 2012. That's because when there were layoffs and furloughs prior to that, it went down. And so, for instance, take the city attorney. City attorney's been doing without is sharing half an administrative person and gone without a legal secretary for a few years, several years. And in this budget year that we're currently in, we actually budgeted for a legal secretary. Therefore, the city attorney's budget is going up. And therefore, every other department that pays internal services, they're going to pay a little more for city attorney, police department, water, sewer, everyone. So it's really only the pie that is the internal service charges that changes. The formula doesn't change, and it doesn't matter what the other departments are doing or how many people you've added or
Basically,
not
if the police department had hired nobody else, the percentage would still be the same. Because it's based on my budget, for example, being how much my budget increased. It has nothing to do with the size of the PD budget. It has nothing to do with the size of the community development budget. It has nothing to do with the size of public works budget. It has to do with how much money in my department. Because what I spend, everything I do, is to service almost a majority, not everything, is to service other city departments, processing transactions, processing payroll, etc. I don't do payroll for Joe Citizen out on the street. I do payroll for the city of Antioch. So my budget, they're paying for my services just as if they, as a third party, went and hired a payroll person, for example. So.
Other questions of our finance director?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I hear the point that if they hired 0 police officers, and I guess if they had no new additional invoices to process, it would still be the same. I was trying to figure out how the formula came about or who decided this percentage. And you're telling me that it's a formula that already exists, so I'm understanding that. But I just have to point out that these are not detractors, Mr. City Manager. These are residents who have concerns, and they bring those concerns to us. And so we have to take those concerns serious. So if it frustrates you that we ask these questions, I'm sorry, but we're going to ask these questions. And so I just want to make clear that there are people who have concerns out there. I ask these questions to be open and transparent so that folks understand what the process is. So now I understand that there's a formula. Whether it should be applied to Measure C is, I guess, then a starting point for what I would like to discuss, because that seems to be a concern that residents have.
If there's no other questions, we'll go to public comment. We have one speaker. Sal Sobrante. And how much time does he have with an agenda item? 3 minutes.
Are we having fun yet? Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Less than a year ago, I reported out as a member of the Measure C Oversight Committee to the Antioch City Council. At that time, I said, while the committee cannot say that the monies allocated to the citywide admin account are not proper use of Measure C money, the question deserves to be asked as to why this allocation continues to rise at such a rate. Every year, the amount going to citywide administration goes up regardless of whether it meets Measure C guidelines or not. The committee, the formal report, stated due to the way the city budgets the police department for Measure C, the committee has some concerns as to whether all Measure C monies are being properly utilized to meet the objectives of this measure. That was the question then, still asks the question. City Council then asked the city manager, who oversees the budget process, to report whether the allocations were proper. In reporting on his own function, Mr. Duran and Ms. Merchant judged it to be proper. I wonder why. We, the citizens of Antioch, voted for Measure C to reduce crime, increase code enforcement, reduce 911 response time, and to minimize blight. What do we get? More money spent on HR, city manager's office, city council, city attorney. Just amazing. In the last 6 years, citywide administration has gone from $1.44 million to $3.152 million. Now that's you guys approving a budget. You approved them to double their budget in 6 years. Same period of time, the police department, which had Measure C passed, only went up 52%. Their budgets, yes, she's allocating, she even said it here. We put our budget together, and then based on that, we allocate that amount of money from the supporting departments. We allocate it. So who's putting the control on citywide administration, HR, all those functions? I mean, I would have voted for the sergeant, okay? I'd put my money there. I wouldn't put my money into the HR function, all these other functions where you're putting it. You know, the Measure C is to take care of the crime in the city of Antioch. If we continue to spend money on HR, finance, attorney, and the other citywide administrations, at the end of the Measure C sunset, we'll not have the money to continue with the number of policemen we have. I've calculated the cumulative amount of overspending going on citywide administration since Measure C began to be over $2 million and going up by over $1.1 million a year. They should not be taking Measure C money to do this. That was not what the city council told us they were going to do. That is not what we voted on.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Then this item is now before council. Yes, question from Council Member Overton.
Ms. Merchant, is there now a new oversight committee?
The oversight committee is still in existence. There are some new members.
Have they met yet?
Yes.
And how did that meeting go?
I think it was a good meeting.
Well, did anybody have the same issues? I mean, is there, did they report back that they felt that there was misuse of the funds at this oversight committee?
Well, they just reviewed expenditures through September, and there was some discussion by one of the members about what they had heard in public, and they wanted definitely some more information. I would say out of the committee members that the majority understood a cost allocation plan and its purpose, and there was one member that wasn't quite sure that she agreed with it. So, but again, too, it is the role of the city council to determine the use of Measure C funds. The committee does not determine the use. They do state whether the, revenues came in and expenditures were spent as directed by council. So the spending of Measure C funds, the way that it is tracked, was established by city council.
Are they going to give another report soon? Are they coming up on the agenda?
There will be, by April 1st, the committee has to give a report.
Okay. Is there a way that maybe Measure C funds could just be used for the officers hired?
If that was the way that council wanted to direct that those funds be tracked, we'd kind of have to set up some new accounting procedures for that, but that could be done. However, just realize that everything else, it's all I'm not saying it's not wrong to do it that way. It's just, it's all general fund money. So you're just going to say that this much more is a general fund portion. Again, the expenditures are still going to be the $50 million. It's just how much you're saying is this pot of general fund money versus Measure C.
Well, I'm glad this came up again because it was one of my items from April and September to bring this back, and it hadn't been brought back. And at that time, I had asked number one for the Measure C just to go towards these officers, and then the other one was just to flat out remove the Measure C cost allocation or the citywide admin fee. So those to me are the two options, or to keep doing it the way we've been doing it. I do trust that you're doing it correctly. I do trust that the percentage has not changed. I understand the math where if our city, if the funds go up, the amount's going to go up. You gave a perfect example in here on the $1,000 and then the next year, 1,010. So it does make sense. I get it. And I do understand what the people are saying, that the funds should not be coming out of the Measure C funds. And I have agreed with that. So those are just my thoughts on that. And I don't know if this is just a report, or are we allowed to take action
Well, so
tonight?
this is asking for direction on the cost allocation plan itself. The Measure C, since that's not the agenda item, that's nothing that can be given direction on. That's going to be part of the budget discussion for the Measure C. Measure C itself. But for the cost allocation plan, we're asking for direction on, do we continue the way it is? Do you want to direct that in the budget 2017-19 budget that's brought forth, that it's not part of the Measure C equation? And if that is the pleasure of the council, we will absolutely do that. We will revise the base amount by removing, because that base amount of the 28.4 million has the cost allocation in it, so we would remove the cost allocation from that number so that the base amount would lower down to more about 26 million. And then when we show the police department expenditures actuals where we're calculating, we would exclude the citywide admin portion. And as the existing council before, if you remember from the charts, how we showed like the negative for the e-bricks, so we backed out that expenditure, it would show the same thing for the citywide admin.
Well, I have one more question. So when has it been set when the budget's going to be reviewed for the next 2 years?
So the budget spreadsheets have been sent out to the departments, and over the next 2 months, staff will be working on putting that together. Hopefully by late March, we'll have a draft document, and that way, early April, we can start budget study sessions, bringing all the information forth to council.
So would, under staff recommendations, would staff rather we wait till then, or
On this cost allocation plan, the reason we brought it forth now, because there has been a lot of public question for it. So, one, we wanted to be able to address the council and the public so they understand exactly how it works, because I know it can be confusing. It really is a complicated plan. The plan itself is like 200 pages of just numbers and percentages, and I mean, it's kind of crazy. Your eyes will cross if you look at it. And so, because it's such at the forefront of the public questioning, we just wanted to get direction so we know when we're putting the budget document together, at least as a basis, what we're first bringing forth for the Measure C equation part.
I just one more comment. I just really want to appreciate and thank you for all the work that you've done on this. I know you've taken a lot of heat on this and had to answer to two new council members, the mayor and the mayor pro tem. And I know it's very time consuming, so I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yeah, I also want to thank you for the report as well. Transparency is the most important thing I think we're really looking at. Money's going to come out. It's going to be the same amount of money. It's going to be the same percentage. It's just that what I'm hearing is, just like we did with the e-bricks program, we just want to be able to see what the allocation is for the police fund compared to what it is compared to Measure C. So I really don't have a problem seeing that. I just don't want to make that decision until I see that in a chart like you've done in the past. You've gone through your cost allocation, your budget, and you've excluded certain things such as e-brick. I think it makes sense if we saw that. Well, then when we start that budget process to make that decision, because I do want to see what the cost factor is for the total police budget, because it's not going to go away. And is it going to affect their ability to function as well if we're taking some of the money away? And that's one of my biggest concerns as well. So I want to see that up front. And I want to be able to have the public speak on that. I want to be able to have our police department speak on that behalf as well.
Well, you know, as I've said, I completely understand your point, but regardless if we say it's Measure C money, it's coming from property tax and fines and forfeitures, other non-Measure C sources, the expenditure is going to be there. It's just whether we say it's part of the equation for Measure C, so anything above the base, you know, which we've discussed. You can't say the whole $2 million in citywide admin is Measure C, everything above that. So you could say, you could just take the position, everything above is all payroll, everything, including the citywide admin, everything below is general fund. And even if you say this is not going to be part of the Measure C equation, the expenditures are still going to be the same bottom line figure in overall general fund, whether you say it's from Measure C or not Measure C. What it's going to affect is the amount of Measure C carryover and how much we say has been spent of Measure C. So that's what we're asking for, you know, direction on. It doesn't stop the allocation to the police department. It just says we're not going to include this in the Measure C equation, and you know, that way, like I said, it's just going to affect that Measure C carryover number.
And I think that's what I was referring to. I'm not taking away the fact that, you know, the money's still going to be allocated. I just want to see it in a chart, how it's going to affect the difference of what the outcome of expenditures of the police budget compared to what it is, you know, what it is now to what it will be without the Measure C.
Right. Well, and I can give you an example. I actually kind of just quickly penciled that in. The current year, fiscal year PD budget for fiscal year 17 is $39,108,380. Of that, just over 2.8 million is what's budgeted for the cost allocation plan. I will say the budget, the actual never ends up meeting the budget, because if city manager doesn't spend as much, we don't, you know, the amount of the allocate, because it gets allocated based on actual by year end. Then that brings that there, if we take it out of the equation, what we're using in the Measure C then is $36,235,724. And if we take it out of the base in the 13-14 year, instead of the 28.4 million, it makes that base number $26,560,004. So then you're comparing the 36 million to the 26 million plus any Measure C money. So I hope that makes sense.
I understand the cost allocation plan. I understand the purpose of it. As somebody who worked on Measure C to help get it passed, I also understand the consternation of watching Measure C money get spent on other sources that aren't helping to directly improve the safety of our community. I would like to see personally tonight a motion made that has you bring back, as you say here, the city council can direct the cost allocation plan charges not be included in the Measure C equation as directed by eBricks. If we were to make a motion tonight that does that, have you bring back, the motion is to have you bring back that, not to pass that, but to have you bring back that as
Correct. That'll be
as an
in
item that
when
we can then vote on.
Right. What would happen then is the budget, as we begin the budget study sessions, that'll be presented. And what I can also do, I can give you two charts of the Measure C, how we do the tables. One is, this is the existing formula with the citywide admin, and that way you can see the numbers I just spoke of actually on paper before you visually, to help you see it a little bit better. And then here it is with the direction. This is how the Measure C allocation is going to look. And then as you go through the budget study sessions, at that time, council either confirms that they want to continue going that way or change some other things with Measure C as well. And that all gets hashed out, determined before the final budget adoption in June.
Any other comments? If not, I would like to make a motion that we direct staff to direct that cost allocation plan charges not be included in the Measure C equation, that the staff bring back to us that option as an option for us to be able to vote on as a council.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. I had a point of question. Councilmember Tony Disgreal.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that you know, and I have no problem supporting this motion in a second. I just want to make it clear that, the public needs to know that there isn't going to be a difference in cost allocations. It's going to be the same. It's coming from one column to another column, and the reason why I didn't question the Measure C allocation at the time, because it was more transparent to me. I saw the money firsthand, where it was going, knowing that this money has been being spent like it's supposed to be spent. Even though we know that when I supported Measure C, that we wanted to use it for hiring police and code enforcement, and I think we've done so. But we need to be transparent about all of our expenditures when money goes, and this just made it a little bit simple for me to view it. But for folks that believe that this may help, extend Measure C, I'll play. But it's still money being spent, and it's money that has to be spent. So I just want to make sure people are clear about that. So
we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I just want to point that, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've only used about $500,000 of Measure C money for code enforcement.
I don't want to give you that number off the top of my head. I believe it might actually be a little bit. So it's been 2 years now. I know in the first year it wasn't very much, but at the budget session, they'll definitely update you on the code enforcement piece. Well, I just don't want to give you an incorrect number. So,
right. But my point being, we haven't used a lot of money to help support code enforcement through Measure C.
And exactly, and the code enforcement is handled a little bit differently, whereas the police department has a base level, and anything over, the city council at the time was very specific on it can only hire a code enforcement officer, a code enforcement manager, a development services tech. So it was very singled out what could be enforcement anyway, are a lot less significant than the police department.
Thank you.
Very good. Then we have a first and a second, and if there's no further comments, we will call to a vote.
There are 5 affirmative votes.